We're gonna give you some of the best ankle mobility exercises that you can utilize to improve the overall range of motion in your ankle joint. And we're gonna start right now. A lot of athletes struggle with actual ankle mobility, and we have to think about, what does ankle mobility lead to? What can it improve for sports performance? If our ankles are more mobile, okay, so if they have greater range of motion and strength in the range of motion, we can accelerate a little bit faster if we're sprinting. We can cut a little bit harder if we're a running back or if we're playing soccer. We can squat a little bit deeper and have our knees track a little bit better moving forward. We can then target our quads a little bit more with our strength work, which in turn is going to lead to better acceleration out on the field. So if we can improve that overall ankle mobility and that ankle stability being part of mobility, now we can actually run faster, we can cut harder, we can be stronger with our squats, and we can improve various positions when we're receiving a snatch or a clean. So we're gonna use all these exercises to improve those specific aspects behind sports performance. All right, so when we're trying to improve our ankle mobility, we have to use these exercises in a strategic manner, okay? I like to get my athletes who have ankle issues, or any of my athletes, because we're always trying to improve that ankle mobility, especially if we have football players or wrestlers who get rolled up on quite a bit. Their ankles get beat up, and when they get beat up, they tend to have a little bit of range of motion problems. So what we wanna do right away is we're gonna use strategically 3 movements right in a row. So we're gonna do what I call ankle windshield wipes, okay? So we wanna go through dorsiflexion, rotate, plantar flexion, rotate, dorsiflexion, rotate, plantar flexion, rotate, okay? And then we're gonna go back the other way, rotate, up. So we're working plantar flexion, dorsiflexion all the way through as part of the warm-up, okay? Now, we're gonna work through that 2 or 3 times, and that's gonna light up your entire ankle and it's gonna light up your feet. And that's one of the big factors, is that when we're actually going through that, as we plantar flex here, we wanna grab with our toes, right? We wanna be grabbing with our toes as we work and rotate here. Now, the next thing that I wanna do is strictly gonna be based around dorsiflexion. Dorsiflexion would be if my toes are pointing up here, I'm dorsiflexing. Now I wanna do this with a bent knee, walking forward, walking backward, and trying to be as stable as possible. And what you'll see how I'm rolling out. Some athletes who might be flat-footed, or some athletes that might be really tight in their groin or in their hamstrings, you'll tend to see this pronation here, okay? So try to really focus on, if you're flat-footed or if you have really stiff ankles, driving those knees out to stabilize so that you're not pronating, okay? So utilize those 2 exercises right away, and that's gonna lead us into that 3rd key exercise. So we're going ankle windshield wipes, okay? Then ankle dorsiflexion walks with our knee flexed. And then we're gonna go into the 3rd thing, which is gonna target that posterior ankle. And what I like to utilize is if I have really, really tight calves, and my Achilles is tight here, okay? So if you have somebody who has torn their Achilles, or we have somebody who has tight calves, you can start here, okay? And then you sit back and you try and slowly sit back. And as you're sitting back, right there, you're gonna try and drive into that calf, and you're gonna keep pushing that back towards the heel as you work through that range of motion, okay? And what I like to do is I'll start the athletes here, right? And then we get into a slightly smaller pipe, and we want to really dig through, okay? And that's going to really open up that whole Achilles. That feels so good right there. And then as we get through that, we're going to go in for a 3rd time now here. And what we'll see too is that our quads are actually going to start to get a little bit more mobile too. My right one's so tight right there. But this feels really good in a weird, painful, sadistic way, right? So as I finish this 3rd swipe, now I'm gonna go stand up and I'm gonna get right back into those windshield wipers here, okay? and then back into the dorsiflexion walks. So you're gonna use those 3 key exercises to wake up and improve that mobility right away in that ankle joint. Okay, so these next 2 exercises are essentially, they're 2 movements, but we're gonna actually show like 3 to 4 different variations. And remember that if you do this 2 to 3 days a week, it's gonna help stabilize that ankle joint. It's gonna help stabilize your knee joint. It's gonna help you get better range of motion. And if you have more mobility in your ankles, your hips and your lower back will actually have more mobility. If we have more mobility in our ankles, our shoulders will have less stress when we catch a snatch. Think about somebody who has really, really tight ankles and their knees don't track forward in a snatch. Now, for them to actually catch a snatch, they have to dump their chest. That puts stress on the lower back and on the shoulder. So this is really, really key. Everything's starting from that ground up, okay, when we're working through all this, and that's why this stuff's important. Now, I like to do some weighted ankle cranks, okay? So I might take, I've used kettlebells in the past, and I like to use a bar or even a plate here, and I wanna sit and push this forward, okay, and do a little bit of like PNF where I walk back, and then I'm gonna press forward and really try and activate my ankle while I'm working through this range of motion. And then I come back again, and I might go through 3 or 4 or 5 different strikes here, right? And really try and feel that all through that Achilles, but be active, okay? Don't just sit there like plopping through working that, and try and feel where you're tight, so that now when you're working through this position and you put your shoes on, your weightlifting shoes, or if you're an athlete, now you can start to feel that greater range of motion and how it's going to apply. And as you get stronger, you can use a heavier kettlebell, you can use a barbell here, or you can stack more plates on. But I like to just walk through forward and try and keep this heel down as much as possible. And remember, one of the most prevalent things that we see with young athletes is ankle pronation, okay? This is a problem where we see those ankles sort of rotate in, and that's going to be caused by tight ankles, flat feet, really, really weak hamstrings and groins. So those are key aspects that we gotta think about as we're mobilizing. Okay, now the next thing after we do those ankle cranks is something that's gonna be a little bit more active, because that's the one thing too, is that we did some active stuff with the windshield swipes and with the walking with the dorsiflexion. We did a little bit more passive work with the PVCs as we're cranking out the back of our Achilles. That's gonna be a little bit more active because we wanna actually think about pushing and grabbing a little bit more. And now we're getting into even more active work where I'd like to put a ball in between my heels, okay? So if I wanna work on dorsiflexion and plantar flexion here, I wanna get this ball and I wanna focus on actually squeezing. And you can use a tennis ball, you could use you could even use like a lacrosse ball. Squeeze in to activate, and you wanna squeeze from that pinky toe as you come down, okay? Come back up, come back down, come back up, come back down. And my socks are starting to roll up. So one thing we can even start to do is bend at the knee, come up. My socks are starting to come undone. So if we're using this, something like one of these slant boards, okay, these are great. You can use it barefoot. You can even use the side of a platform here. You can even use plates. You can stack plates or dumbbells, the handles of the dumbbells. Those are really easy, unique ideas. And as you start to work through it, now what I want to see is that knee flexion becomes more prominent, because now I'm dorsiflexing here in my ankles. I'm still squeezing the ball, and I come up and I extend my knees here. Knee flexion, squeezing the ball, come back up, okay? So if you're an athlete who tends to squat and go here with the ankles rolling, this is something where you can actually force the heels in by grabbing from the outside of your pinky toes, okay, to help that rotation. And that's gonna lead to greater ankle mobility. And part of mobility is stability. So you're gonna have that passive range of motion is gonna be greater, and you're gonna have stronger ankles. So I recommend doing these 5 movements 3 to 4 days a week as a warm up, or even one of those days where you're just targeting your ankles as part of an accessory plan, whatever you have. And think about, if your ankles are more mobile and there's greater range of motion, you're gonna take stress off of your lower back. You're gonna take stress off of your shoulders when you're catching snatches and anything anything like that. You're also gonna be able to run faster because you'll have a steeper shin angle, which will increase your acceleration, okay? So this work transfers really, really well to sports performance. If you need help with this, click on the link down below, head over to garagestrength.com, and you can pick up a mobility program designed specifically for athletes to improve their overall sports performance. If you want other content like this, click on this card right here. Until next time, guys, peace.